welcome this morning. Isn't that the truth? Doesn't moms, they make everything much more beautiful, okay? If you have a mom near you, not that it's your mom, but if there's a mom near you, go ahead and wish her Happy Mother's Day. Somewhere close to you, Happy Mother's Day to all the wonderful moms out there. We are thankful for you. We as kids, we as husbands, we can't do it, okay? We know we can't do it without you. I was very pleased with the women's ladies brunching yesterday, and as my wife was speaking, she said, "My husband couldn't do it without me." I'm paraphrasing, but she's like, "I could do it without him." Okay, so that made me feel real good. But it's the truth. Okay, it's the truth. She could go on without me. I don't think I could go a day. But we are thankful for you. There are countless, many things that mothers do, ladies do within a home that you go unthanked and unappreciated, but the one day a year, this is your day. Demand thanks, okay? Make sure you go home and demand thanks. Now, we appreciate you. We love you. Today, we're going to look at this idea of a great woman. And we're going to talk about this great woman from 2 Kings chapter 4. Think about all the stories in the Bible, and I do think there is a purpose. God makes no mistakes when he's writing the Bible. And on purpose, God put in there many stories about many strong women, many great women, women that did some great things in the Bible. And it's important for us to appreciate that, to understand that there are women in the Bible that God used for a specific and an important reason, okay? And we need to understand that. And think about Eve, the mother of humanity. Think about Hannah, the mother of Samuel. Mary, the mother of Jesus. Esther and all the great things that she did, and so many more. There are so many mothers and women in the Bible that did some great things of God. Don't think because you're a woman, you're any less important. No, that is a lie. God did some wonderful things with women in the Bible. Women, godly women, are essential to the home, essential to the family, essential to the world. If the home is going to survive and remain a vital part of our society, we need godly women. Does everybody understand that? We need godly women, women that are great. The Bible tells us that a man that has a godly wife has a great treasure. God is trying to help us to understand that if your wife, if you have a great wife, you have something that is far above treasures. Proverbs 31 and verse 10, it says, "Who can find a virtuous woman? For her price is far above rubies." Just think about that. The price that God is putting on a woman, far above rubies. Remember that the wisest man that ever lived said this in Proverbs 18:22, "Whoso findeth a wife findeth a good thing." A woman of virtue, a woman that should be praised. Socrates said this, "By all means, marry. If you get a good wife, you'll become happy." That's good. If you get a bad one, you'll become a philosopher. So there you go. There's options there. Now, the theme of a godly mother and a godly woman runs extensively through the Bible. Proverbs 31 is dedicated to dealing with this idea of a godly woman, as well as many, many other scriptures in the Bible. Now, the woman that we're going to look at today is found in a story that maybe some of you heard, maybe you haven't, but we're going to revisit this in 2 Kings chapter 4. A very well-known story that is very, very interesting when you really dive into it. So we're going to read a few verses this morning. We don't usually have big, long passages, but I think it's important for us to see this today. So 2 Kings chapter 4, starting in verse 8, we're going to read through verse 13, and then we're going to jump ahead to 22 and read a few verses there. It says, "And it fell on a day that Elisha passed to Shunem, where was," and this is the theme of our message today, "a great woman. And she constrained him to eat bread. And so it was that as oft as he passed by, he turned in thither to eat bread." I don't know any man that would turn down a free meal, okay? And this woman was offering a free meal to him. Come eat bread. And it says, as oft as he passed by, he turned in thither to eat bread. And she said unto her husband, "Behold, now I perceive that this is an holy man of God, which passeth by us continually. Let us make a little chamber, I pray thee, on the wall, and let us set for him there a bed, and a table, and a stool, and a candlestick. And it shall be when he cometh to us, that he shall turn in thither." And it fell on a day that he came thither, and he turned into the chamber and lay there. And he said to Gehazi, his servant, call this Shunammite. And when he had called her, she stood before him. And he said unto him, say now unto her, behold, thou hast been careful for us with all this care. What is to be done for thee? Wouldest thou be spoken for to the king or to the captain of the host? And she answered, I dwell among mine own people. Skip down now to verse 22. And it says, as she called unto her husband and said, send me, I pray thee, one of the young men and one of the asses, that I may run to the man of God and come again. And he said, wherefore wilt thou go to him today? It is neither new moon nor Sabbath. And she said, it shall be well. Then she saddled an ass and said to her servant, drive and go forward, slack not thy riding for me, except I bid thee. Go fast, is what she's saying. So she went and came unto the man of God to Mount Carmel. And it came to pass, when the man of God saw her afar off, that he said to Gehazi his servant, behold, yonder is that Shunammite. Run now, I pray thee, to meet her, and say unto her, is it well with thee? Is it well with thy husband? Is it well with the child? You say, well, where did this child come from? Those are the verses that we skip. We'll come back to it. And she answered, it is well. And when she came to a man of God to the hill, she caught him by the feet. But Gehazi came near to thrust her away. And the man of God said, let her alone, for her soul is vexed within her. And the Lord hath hid it from me, and hath not told me. So I don't know what's going on. God didn't tell me what was going on here. He hid it from me. Then she said, did I desire a son of my Lord? Did I not say, do not deceive me? Then he said to Gehazi, gird up thy loins, and take my staff in thine hand, and go thy way. If thou meet any man, salute him not. And if any salute thee, answer him not again, and lay my staff upon the face of the child. And the mother of the child said, as the Lord liveth, as thy soul liveth, I will not leave thee. And he arose and followed her. And Gehazi passed on before them, and laid the staff upon the face of the child, but there was neither voice nor hearing. Wherefore he went again to meet him, and told him, saying, the child is not awakened. And when Elisha was come into the house, behold, the child was dead, and laid upon his bed. He went in therefore, and shut the door upon them twain, and prayed unto the Lord. And he went up and lay upon the child, and put his mouth upon his mouth, and his eyes upon his eyes, and his hands upon his hands. And he stretched himself upon the child, and the flesh of the child waxed warm. Then he returned and walked into the house to and fro, and went up and stretched himself upon him. And the child sneezed 7 times, and the child opened his eyes. And he called Gehazi and said, call this Shunammite. So he called her, and when she was come in unto him, he said, take up thy son. Then she went in and fell at his feet, and bowed herself to the ground, and took up her son, and went out. Dear Lord, I pray that you be with us today. Help us as we look at this idea of a great woman. God, we are thankful for all the ladies in here, Lord, the mothers in here, the women in here, Lord, that, God, you can do some great things in their lives. God, I pray that as we look at this, even as men, 1, we would appreciate a good woman, and 2, we would apply whatever we can into our lives as well, because there are many truths here that we can apply to ourselves. But God, I pray that today in this building that the women here would know that they're appreciated, know that they're loved, know that we are so thankful for them. And God, I pray that you would show them something as well from this passage today. God, give me the words that I need to say, and help me to fully appreciate them as well, and help us to get something from your word today. We love you, and we thank you for all that you do and who you are. Amen. The woman we're looking at today, found here in 2 Kings 4, as we looked at in verse 8, we see that she was called great. Think about being called great. Wouldn't you like to be called great? How many in here, you don't have to raise your hand, but you would deny that opportunity to be called great at something? Growing up, I was always great at things that I really didn't care about, honestly, okay? I was good academically, okay? That's not going to get the ladies, all right? Academically, I was good. I was smart. I could get good grades, but sports-wise, I was good. I was okay. I was so-so. But that's what I wanted to be great at. We want to be great in the things that we really want to be great at. But here we see this story about this woman. And this woman was called great. And to be called great is something that is a very high compliment. So, what about this woman made her great? Why would she be called great? As we dive into her story, I believe we quickly see why the Bible calls her great. Her greatness is special because it comes from within her. What is inside of you is what is going to come outside of you. What is inside, people will soon begin to see, and they will know who you truly are. In the case of this woman, she faced challenges and circumstances that would defeat most normal people. Most people would just be like, I can't handle this, I can't take this, and they would quit. But this was not so with this great woman. From this story, we see some great attributes that we should look for in a great woman. So let's look at these things. Number one, as we look back in verses 8 through 10, we're going to see a great woman has character. Think about a great woman in your life, somebody that you consider great. That is probably someone that has good character, good characteristics, good character traits. As we look here in verse 8, it says, and it fell on a day that Elisha passed to Shunem. Where was this great woman? And she constrained him to eat bread. And so it was that as oft as he passed by, he turned in thither to eat bread. And she said unto her husband, behold, now I perceive. You have a Bible there and you write in your Bible, circle that word, underline that word, I perceive that this is an holy man of God, which passes by us continually. Let us make a little chamber, I pray thee, on the wall, and let us set for him there a bed and a table and a stool and a candlestick. And it shall be when he cometh to us that he shall turn in thither. We quickly learn that this woman, this Shunammite woman, had character. Why? We see several things in her life that prove that she had character. The first thing that we see is she had perception. She saw Elisha going by. Almost all the time she was seeing this man go by and constrained him. Please let me give you a meal. Please come in here and let my husband and I, let us give you some food. This was not the first time he had gone by. She had seen him many times. She showed perception and discernment here in verse 9. She said, behold, now I perceive that this is a holy man of God, which passes by us how many times? Continually. She had seen him go by and she had this godly perception. She told her husband, this is a holy man of God. So we see that she had this spiritual perception. But number two, we also see that she had service. A great woman is one that serves. She puts her heart not above other people, but she puts other people's heart above herself. She puts her wants down below and she puts everybody around her. She lifts them up. No one thinks of a selfish, self-absorbent woman as being great. No, they think of a servant woman, a woman that serves, a woman that loves and cares. This is the woman that is great. This woman that cares for others. Here in this passage, we see that this great woman was willing and excited to serve. We see here that she wasn't doing it begrudgingly. She wasn't like, oh man, I probably should do this. There he goes again. God said I should do this. He's told me in my heart. I perceive that he's a holy man. No, she was excited. She constrained him to come in. She wanted him to come in. She was willing and excited to serve this prophet. She decided to make this her mission. She did not delegate it to someone else. I feel like we should serve this prophet. You over there, can you do it for me? Can you go do this? Can you? No, she did it willingly of herself. She wanted to take care of this man of God's needs by giving him food, shelter, and a place to rest. Recently, we talked about Abraham and Sarah and their hospitality and how they were willing to serve. Here we see this in this woman. This woman shows her hospitality of going over and above for this man. Now, I want you to understand this too. As you look through this passage, do you see a name there? No, what you see is a great woman. Understanding that as she's putting other people's needs above herself, she wants no what? No recognition. She doesn't want anybody to know who she is. The Bible doesn't name her. We know that she is a Shunammite woman that was a great woman. She put her needs above everyone else. And this is not only practical, but it is a biblical concept. Hebrews chapter 13, verses 1 and 2 says, let brotherly love continue. Be not forgetful to entertain, hospitality, entertain strangers, for thereby some have entertained angels unaware. We've heard that verse quoted before, that you don't know who you're serving. And in serving someone else, you could be serving the Lord through that. 1 Peter 4 and verse 9, it says, use hospitality one to another without grudging. Now be upset as you give this hospitality. Leviticus 19 and verse 33, it says, and if a stranger sojourn with thee in your land, ye shall not vex him. But the stranger that dwelleth with you shall be unto you as one born among you. Treat them like family. And thou shalt love him as thyself, for ye were strangers in the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. Think about that hospitality. We all want hospitality. Let's give it as well. Let's share that hospitality with others. The third thing that we see about her and her character is that she is a giving person. This great woman gives of herself. It costs her. Isn't it easy to give somebody something when it's not your own? But if it's your own time, it's your own stuff, it's your own possessions, it costs you. In this passage, we see that this woman allowed herself to be inconvenienced. To be hospitable and giving would cost her her time. It would cost her her space. It would cost her money. It would cost her possessions. Just think about when you invite somebody over, if they stay a day, 2 days, 3 days, a week, it starts to cost you something, right? You're paying for their food. You're paying for their time. You're paying even for, I can't walk around and just be myself sometimes because I have somebody in my house. I have somebody right there. It costs you something. Here in this story, we see this woman, she gave bread. In verse 10, we see she gave a chamber, a bed, a table, a stool, a candlestick. They were giving of themselves, and this woman had it on her heart, and her mission was to give. This is a great woman here. And this great woman, we see characteristics that I pray that we would apply to ourselves as Christians. And again, we're talking about a great woman, but a great man is somebody that has character as well, that is willing to give, that is willing to do these things. So number one, we see in this story, a great woman has character. Number two, we see a great woman is content. I love how this story unfolds. It's just interesting as you go back and you read the Old Testament, and as you're seeing these stories and how they unfold and how things happen, and we see faith and we see all kinds of things in these stories, here we see a woman that is content. 2 Kings chapter 4, look back at verses 11 through 13. It says, and it fell on a day that he came thither, and he turned into the chamber and lay there. One of those days where he is passed by and he stops into this chamber. It says in verse 12, and he said to Gehazi, his servant, call this Shunammite. And when he had called her, she stood before him. And he said unto her, say now unto her, behold, thou hast been careful for us with all this care. What is to be done for thee? Wouldest thou be spoken for the king and to the captain of the host? And she answered, I dwell among mine own people. As this story unfolds, we see that this woman, showed her greatness through kindness, through love, through hospitality. And if this is all she did, guess what? She would have been a great woman. I think to have a woman like this would have been a great woman, but that is not all she did. There is more to this story than just food and compassion and a place for Elisha to lay his head. No, there was more. One particular time as we read in this passage, as he is passing by and he lays his head down in this prophet's chamber, I believe he is sitting there pondering and thinking about all this woman has done for him. All the many times, we don't know when it was. We don't know how many times he's come, how many meals he's had, how many times he's passed by and been able to sleep in this bed and to relax and just not have to worry about finding a place to stay. We don't know that. But what we do know is as he laid there, he began to think about all this woman had done. He begins to ponder this and he starts to think, what can I do for her? How can I show her my appreciation? So he calls his servant over and he says, here are my instructions. I want to show her gratitude. I want to compensate her. Look back at verse 13 again. He says, say now unto her, behold, thou hast been careful for us. With all this care, what is to be done for thee? What can we do for you? What do you want? He says, I want you to go ask her. What do you want? What do you desire? Do you want to live in the king's palace? Do you want your husband to be captain of the host? Just tell me what you want. We want to do something special for you. All you have to do is name your price. Blank check there. Just tell us what you want, and we want to show our appreciation to you. Just let Elisha know what you want. Most people these days, they want compensation. If I'm going to do something, then I want to know that something's going to be done back for me. I want to know, if I do this thing for you, are you going to give something back to me? Are you going to show love to me? Are you going to care for me? What are you going to do for me? A great woman is not looking to be compensated for the things that she does. You see, a great woman is content. This is the idea here. In verse 13, we see what her answer is. As the servant comes to her, we see that she says, I dwell among mine own people. You say, well, what does that mean? And her terminology here, this was her way of saying, I don't want anything. I don't desire anything. I don't want to live anywhere else. I don't want my husband to get another job. And he's like, wait a minute, what was that? No, I'm content with where I am. I don't need anything. To be content is to feel or show satisfaction with one's possessions. Listen to this. With one's status or situation. She was content with a life that God had provided for her. This echoed later in the Bible in the New Testament, as we see in Paul when he writes in Philippians 4 and verse 11, not that I speak in respect of want, for I have learned in whatsoever state I am, therewith to be what? To be content. I may not be happy. I may not be thrilled with my situation, but you know what I am? I am content. We know that as Paul was writing this, he was in a jail. Can we say that as we're at home with the warmth or the cool of, the thermostat is exactly where it needs to be. We got a full fridge. We have a full belly. We have a TV on. We have all these things, and yet many of us are not what? We're not content. Here we see that Paul, in the midst of a horrible situation, writes this verse, and he says, I've learned to be content. We see the same mindset here in 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 6. It says, but godliness, listen to this, with contentment is great gain. You want something, this is what you want. Godliness with contentment is great gain. And this is why. He says this, for we brought nothing into this world, and it is certain we can carry nothing out. As we are born with nothing, as a baby is born, it brings nothing into this world. Okay? The same is to be said as you leave this world. You are not taking anything with you. So let us be content. Paul and Timothy had learned to live in such a way that even through rough and even horrible circumstances, they could still be content. Why? Because they knew that God was in control. This is the same that could be said for this great woman. She was content because she knew that God is in control and God is going to take care of me. I need to just do what I am called to do. Here she wanted to serve Elisha. Why? Because she wanted to serve God. She wanted no compensation. She wanted nothing back. Now, I want you to see this in verses 14 through 17. If you have your Bible there, you can look ahead. I'm not going to read these verses, but we see that Elisha, he says, okay, I get that, but I want to bless her regardless. I understand what you're saying. You're not asking for anything, but I want to bless her regardless. He begins to think, and he says, she's without son, and her husband is getting up there in age. I believe that she probably wants a son. And so Elisha said, God is going to give you a son. You know what her reply is? Don't deceive me, okay? Don't trick me. Don't lie to me, okay? If this is the truth, tell me the truth, but don't deceive me. We're going to see this come up again in a few minutes. Now, I want you to imagine just for a second here. Imagine as Elisha said, here is a blank check. What do you want? I want a big house. Boom, there it is. You get your big house. You have your big house, and that's it. Do you think that would have really made her happy? Do you think that's the thing that would have really brought her joy? For her husband to have a better job and maybe to bring in more income. Whatever it was that she decided, hey, this is what I'd like to do. I'd like a big, nice kitchen. I'd like this or that, She began to fill in that blank check and she decided, this is what I want. You know what she was going to do? She was going to miss out on an even greater blessing. Something that would happen, something special that would happen that she would not even realize. She wasn't even asking for this, and yet God provided her with a son. So number one, we see a great woman has character. A great woman is content. But number three, a great woman shows confidence. 2 Kings chapter 4, verses 22 through 37. That was a long passage. We're not going to read it again, but I want you to see, and I'm going to tell you the story of what's going on here. See, most humans these days, they're looking for something to put their confidence in. I want my confidence in this, okay? I'm putting my confidence in that. The world tries to tell us to put confidence in ourselves. There are many, many books that are written. There are blogs. There are podcasts. There's all kinds of things about our self-confidence. And I believe we need some self-confidence, but that is not what it's all about here. Because I don't believe a great woman shows confidence in herself, okay? I believe you should have self-confidence. Let me preface that. But your confidence should be in something that is much greater. Why not put your confidence in someone that we know will never let us down? How many of you, don't raise your hand, but you've let yourself down? I messed up again. I've let somebody else down. I've let this down. I cannot put confidence in myself, because if I put confidence in myself, that's not enough. I need to put confidence in God. And I believe this great woman, this is what she did in our story. We see that she put her confidence and her faith in the Lord. In verse 18, if you have your Bible open there, you'll see that this blessing was from God. But this blessing from God, the child, it was not feeling good, okay? From verse 18, it goes downhill very quick. As we see this story, as we see it unfold, by verse 20, this woman was holding her child in her arms as he slowly passed away and he died. I can't even imagine how she felt. I can't imagine the anguish that she felt, the heartache that she felt, knowing that this is not what she asked for, knowing that she wasn't looking for a child, but knowing that this was a gift of God, knowing that she had this baby, and in her arms, it began to take its last breath. But as we read in these next verses, we see that she has confidence, and she puts that confidence, she puts that faith to action. She decides to go find this man of God, and that's where we picked up in verse 22 as we read just a few moments ago, as she says, I need a donkey. I need a servant. I need somebody to come with me. I need to go, and we're going to go as fast as we can. You see, she's putting confidence and faith to action. She is going to ask Elisha for help. Not just to ask him for help, but to beg him to heal her son. Just because we have confidence and faith in God doesn't mean we're not going to go through tests. That doesn't mean we're not going to go through trials. That doesn't mean we're not going to go through heartache. But what it does mean is that our confidence will remain strong through each and every trial, through each and every test, through each and every heartache. A woman that is a great woman, she has confidence in God, that no matter what goes on around her, remember, she's content, but now she has confidence. No matter what happens around her, she believes in God. She trusts in God. She has faith in God. She is confident in God. When she begins to speak to Elisha, she says, "Did I not say, do not deceive me?" She reminds him that I asked you, don't lie to me. If I'm really going to have this baby, make sure you don't lie to me. Don't deceive me. She's saying, I didn't ask for this son, and yet you blessed me with one. You allowed God to bring this baby into my life, and why would God now allow this to be taken away? And as we read this, we might think, well, she's a bitter woman. She's angry. She's in attack mode here, going after Elisha the prophet, but that is not the truth at all. She is really showing her confidence here. Let's look at this now. As we're talking about this, look at this through a lens of confidence, okay? See her, what she's going through confidence now in God. Before she leaves, if you go back to verse 23, we see what she tells her husband, as I'm sure she's frantic, as she's trying to get everything together, and she's going to take this donkey, she's going to take this servant, she's going to head to Elisha, and he basically asks her how she's doing, and what she says in verse 23, it shall be well. Think about the confidence there. The confidence in God, the confidence that things are going to work out, that things are going to be right. When she arrives at Mount Carmel, where Elisha and his servants are, Elisha sent his servant to greet her when she was still far away off. He looks in yonder and he goes, oh, there's that Shunammite woman. Go see what she wants. Go ask her some questions here. And these are the questions that she asks, or that he asks in verse 26. He asks, is it well with thee? Is it well with thy husband? And is it well with the child? You say, well, he was a prophet. Do you remember that he said, God's blocked this from me? I really don't know what's going on. I don't know why she's coming so fast, but go talk to her. Go see what's going on. Is it well with thee? Is it well with thy husband? Is it well with the child? And look at her answer in verse 26 of faith, an answer of confidence. As her life is crumbling around her, what does she say? It is well. Think about that hymn. It is well with my soul. It is well. Why? It doesn't matter about the circumstances that are going around, because my confidence is not in the circumstances that are around me. This life is going to be here and it's going to be gone. The Bible calls it is but a vapor. It is here and it passes. That is why we don't live our lives for money or possessions. We live our life for God, because what happens here is only going to be a short time. And that's why when our entire world is crumbling, we can say it is well. My wife talked yesterday to the ladies, and I was so proud of her as she was talking up there, and she talks about joy. Joy is something that is much deeper than happiness. There are not a lot of happy people, so to speak, in this world. Why? Because we're not supposed to be happy here in this world. This world is broken. This world is sinful. This world is decaying. This world is getting worse. But my joy is not in this world. My joy is not in my home. My joy is not in my family. My joy is in the Lord, because He is the only one that can provide this. A great woman understands this. Her confidence is not in herself. Her confidence is in the Lord, the only one that can truly bring joy. Is it well with thee? Is it well with thy husband? Is it well with thy child? It is well. She believed everything in her life was going to be fine because she had confidence in God. I truly believe that if this baby had died, spoiler alert, he's raised from the dead, but if he had stayed dead, she would have been fine, because she was a great woman, a woman of confidence, a woman of joy, a woman that understood that there is more to this life, that God is in control. When we're going through struggles in our life, can we say it is well? Or do we complain? Do we throw fits? Do we have true joy in our life? Elisha ends up going back to the house and he prays over the child. Just a cool story of the way everything happens. He lays on the child. He puts his head on the child, his face on the child, his arms on the child, and he prays over this child. And the Bible tells us that the child begins to be warm. Gets down, he paces back and forth. I'm sure he's praying to God. God, this woman has shown me so much love, so much care. This woman is a great woman. God, please bring this woman's son back to life. Lays back on the child and he begins to pray some more. And all of a sudden it says that the child sneezed. The child awoke and he goes and tells the mother, hey, your child's alive. Come get your child. What a miracle that the baby came back to life. But again, that is a side note. That is a thing that it's a happy ending to this story. But I truly believe that if none of that would happen, she would still have been called a great woman of God here. Why? Because she had character. She was content. She had confidence in God.